Today is the 100th consecutive Sunday that we've gathered to celebrate and to advocate for the dignity of real people, to shine a light on injustices done to real people, to share information about what can be done to help real people, to add what we can to the betterment of our community. So we'll have the external speakers, the big names, coming in on May 29. But today, I thought we might share among ourselves what Justice Southbury has meant to us, what we hope it will do in the future, to share a special moment or memory or topic.
So I have to say I'm disappointed because I've been thinking about these words all week, and I consider myself somewhat of a poet, and I couldn't find the words for things. Patrick O'Tuma wrote this week about how leadership is a lonely place, and people who bring people together and act like leaders in their time often feel very lonely. So I hope you don't feel lonely, and thank you so much for what you've offered us, which is a chance to stand up for what we believe in and show so many others that we're willing to stand up, whether you shout something nasty or not, and say, love your neighbor.
You know, I heard that we were going to speak, and why do I go? I go because all you wonderful people. And then there was a state senator from Michigan who stood up to hate. I said, well, I have to talk about that. That's what I want to talk about. So then this morning, I got an email, I'm not sure where, this wonderful quote: hate paralyzes life, love releases it. Hatred confuses life, love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life, love illuminates it. Martin Luther King Jr.
I have not been able to be here as much as I wanted to. Retired earlier, or rather earlier this year, that's right. And I've been trying to get here, but what I love is being able to just, as I heard, is come here, have a voice, make a difference, but it really is you people who are here who inspire me. And I wanted to share what really inspired me this morning, being at church, and it's Divine Mercy Day, if you're Catholic, and I thought, mercy, that is a great word, and I think that's really important for what we're here for, whether it's Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ rights, just people's dignity. To me, if you have mercy, meaning you're forgiving, you're compassionate, you're empathetic, it will lead people to hope, which will hopefully forge into justice of some kind. So to me, that's what we're all about, is all those elements kind of coming together.
I guess the word that I only heard once today is persistence. And our being out here 100 weeks showing our values to the people has to make a difference in their calculus when they vote. So I'm glad we're here.
I think that two words come to mind when I think of Justice Southbury that we don't get to see enough, I think, in this world, and those two words are compassion and courage. It takes a lot of compassion and a lot of courage to be out here week after week, to stand up for what you believe in, even though some people might knock you down for it or judge you unfairly or harshly for it. And both those compassion and courage are done in such a selfless way, which is, you see so many people tout a mission of helping others when really they're in it to help themselves. And I know that no one who is a part of Justice Southbury is here to benefit themselves. They're here to benefit people as a whole, which is really admirable. And I also, since my lovely father and wonderful sister and my family all together, you have done such an amazing job. I know how hard you work in everything that you do, and to add this onto it and put everything into it is just amazing to watch. Both my parents are wonderful role models, if you didn't know. But you have always said to us, good, better, best, never let it rest until your good is better and your better is the best. And Justice Southbury hasn't just been persistent in coming out 100 weeks in a row, but in continuing to build, to make this movement stronger, and that's a really, really admirable thing. So thank you, love you.
I wasn't sure I wanted to speak, but the concept of parents setting a good example really brought me here. I will tell you the story. It's why I'm here, and not so much what Justice Justice Southbury has done for me, what my mom has done. When I was 6 years old, I wanted to be a brownie. And I came home from school crying because the brownie troop was full. And I couldn't get into the troop, and I felt really very excluded. And my mother, who had a husband who had been ill in recent months, and a 6-month-old baby, and me, who was the oldest, and my brother, who was younger, called the Girl Scout Council and found out that there was a waiting list in our public school for brownies. And if she wanted to become a leader, they would give her the waiting list, and she could call the families and have a new brownie troop. And that's what she did. She formed, this was, I don't know if I said this at the beginning, this was in the Bronx. She formed one of the first racially integrated brownie troops in the Bronx, because those were the girls on the waiting list. And those were the girls that I grew up with and moved on to, what came next. In those days, I guess it was intermediate scouts. But these were, we were neighbors, and we came together. So she set the example of caring about what you're doing, inclusivity, and that's how I've tried to live my life. But thank you for opening this opportunity for the times that I can get here and bringing us all together.
Hello. I was definitely not expecting to address the group. Let me just start off by saying how incredibly proud and honored I am to be here today, but what you have done to have the persistence and the courage to stay here each of the times I've come. There is so much support, but of course there's also the people that remind you why this work is so important, right? I will say for me personally, what I appreciate so much from this group is having a sense of hope and inspiration that we're working across towns as a coalition to really fight through things that we know are fundamentally right. It can be very difficult when you're faced with so much hate, so much bigotry, and you turn on the news and you look at your neighbors, some who are discriminated against, and you feel this crushing weight. But Justice Southbury, you show up every week and you take the stand that you're making not just incremental improvements as to how you bring your community together, but I think just the community itself and what you do for one another is so moving. So yeah, keep it up. I can't wait for all that is to come for your group.
Hello again. I just wanted to quickly speak because I've been thinking about what I wanted to say here for the last week now. And what I kept thinking was that we produce things here. We produce important efforts. We produce things that actually go to people that really help them. We produce love. We produce an awareness of what we're doing. But we also produce hope. We produce a lot of hope here, I feel. Kind of going back to exactly what Tara was saying. I feel that I come here and I feel reinvigorated, that there is a space full of people who care about this stuff. Those spaces exist, and we have the power to make them with our own bare hands. And the thought that just kept coming to mind was like a hope machine. But machine feels so technical and so like metal and strict and stringent. And I don't think of us like that. Justice Southbury is a growing collective. It's a bunch of people working together, and we grow in different ways. We go through different phases. We all learn things together, or we learn things, one of us learns something and we teaches each other. I think at the end of the day, Justice Southbury is producing hope because we're growing it. In our grassroots advocacy, we are producing homegrown hope. And that is something I don't think I'll ever get over the magic of. Thank you.
So I'd first like to echo what Anna said, and I really want to just publicly say how much I appreciate what Rick has done, what Julia's done, even what Anna and Grace have done when they've been here, and Kathy. So I think this community really owes a debt of gratitude to this family and what they brought. And I just admire what they've been able to do. So my hat goes off to all of you for keeping us together, because this would not have happened without this kind of leadership. I'd like to see Rick even do more, but we'll talk about that want to be the skunk at the picnic, but a lot of us started coming because of George Floyd. And what we saw in that video just turned our stomachs. We said, how can we be living in a country where an officer of the law would do that? And yet this week, I think if George Floyd hadn't happened, the brutal murder of a person who was pulled over for a traffic violation, shot in the head by a policeman while he was down on the ground, I think would have been a galvanizing effect. So although we have a lot to be proud of, and we've accomplished quite a bit in the last 2 years, a lot in the last 2 years, I think we also have to recognize we have a lot more that needs to change in this country. If we're really going to get to be justice for all. We're a long way to go.
Two things, really. One of them is that I care a lot about things, and that is an extremely lonely position to be in most of the time, because I feel like a lot of people either don't care a lot or they don't want you to think they care a lot, because that's harder. And every week when I come here, I'm reminded there are plenty of people that care a lot. And some of you, at least me, I'm here because I saw other people here and I said, that looks like something I got to be a part of. So thank you all for giving me hope and giving me encouragement, but also there are so many people that are seeing us out here and they're saying, well, gee, I care, but I thought it stopped with that. I have my thoughts and prayers, but I thought that's where it ended. And I like the idea that we're saying, well, thoughts and prayers are important, but then you're supposed to get up and do something. That's not supposed to be where it stops. That's supposed to be where it begins. Jeremy's comment, I mean, we're growing hope here, meant so much to me. His comment about being metal, I thought he was going to be like Slayer or something, because this is hard work. We have people here that have been out in hurricanes, people that have been out here in blizzards, and still keep on coming. This is not a bunch of soft people out here. This is a bunch of people who are taking risks and sticking their necks out. I am grateful to every one of you for doing that so cheerfully and so regularly and with such hope. So thank you all for that.
You guys are so awesome, and because you're here week after week, you have made me a better person, and that's what Justice Southbury has done for me. And you guys are amazing. The cause is awesome, and I'm so happy that we got to 100, and I'm really looking forward to see where we are the next 100.
What you guys have said is it's such a security and a compassion, and we all are so bonded, and we're caring and feeling.
First, I want to say that Mary and I usually do almost everything together, so I'm a little bit lost without her. Come on up here, Mary.
Oh.
And I guess I'm known as a man of few words more than a man of a lot of words. I write a lot of words, but I don't speak them. So I'm going to give you my one-word impression of our group here, and that is altruism. And the definition of altruism that I read as I was doing some writing, I was looking for a good definition, and I found a good one. It is the selfless concern for others, selfless concern for proud to be a part of it. And I know Mary always has something to say when I say something, so I'm going to turn the mic over to her.
Thank you. I was just thinking that I spent most of my 29-year teaching career in Waterbury, which is an incredibly diverse community, as you know. And then I would come back here, back home to Southbury at night, and it was like I felt this incredible disconnect. I could see what the real world was like in Waterbury, and I felt like I that I've experienced with our rallies is when we've heard personal stories from people of color who live in our community and people of the LGBTQ community who told their personal stories. And I think it's so important to keep those stories alive and keep listening to them and keep acting on them to make Southbury a better community.
Woo! Woo! Sometimes a man of few words can have too few words. And I missed one before. It is selfless concern for the well-being of others. Selfless concern for the well-being of others. That's the definition of altruism. And I think everyone here is
So I just wanted to share one of my formative moments in this movement was reading Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote and applying it to the path ahead of us back around week 3. This thought has guided much of what I've tried to do ever since. Martin Luther King Jr. said, quote, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." End quote. We have not been silent. We are friends who have spoken up whenever we've seen or heard about injustice. We are friends who have acted up whenever a marginalized person or group needs an ally. We are friends who have held up signs of love and support and peace, insisting that the way to build a more fair and kind community for all requires loving all of our neighbors. We are friends who have listened up to speakers, as Mary said, young and old, black and white, Hispanic, Asian, straight, LGBTQ+, Christian, Jew, Muslim, agnostic, atheist. We are friends who have put up with the finger and the Trump 2020 and the Trump 2024 and the get a job and the lovers. And the guy today who said, "Where are all the black people?" which I thought is a real big sign of support. He wants Southbury to be more integrated. So yes, we're with you. And the smoky exhaust and the trash thrown at us. And when they yell all lives matter, we yell equally. And finally, even during a pandemic, in the best and the worst of the weather, and the responsibilities and the commitments and the joys and the celebrations of life, along with our hobbies and along with our travel, as that all of those compete for our time, we are friends who show up. It's from Martha Cuthbert. Martha said, "I would add that the culture itself is changed by people's personal expression of their beliefs, investments, ideas. Art changes the culture. So do open-hearted people gathering to force dialogue by their mere presence, holding signs, challenging the culture to discuss and see the ways in which we have fallen short of our intention to forge a nation of liberty and justice for all people. Justice Southbury is a loving provocateur, weekly, to midwifing crucial transformation and change. I've missed you all. I'm looking." Said, "Rick, you invited me to say something about Justice Southbury, so here's my say. It's rather long, so please feel free to edit," and I'm not going to edit Sharon's words because Sharon's a wonderful writer. Don't ever edit her words. "In view of anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers, anti-school, and anti-book discussions about discrimination based on color, gender identity, and the rise of Moms for Liberation and Parental Choice Region 15, Justice Southbury has a pivotal role to play. These conservative and far-right groups are linking up with such non-inclusive groups as the Heritage Foundation and Parler. And Justice Southbury, I feel, needs to step up to the microphone and point out where such socio-political stances and actions lead. For example, where did the predominant anti-mask, anti-vax proponents in Florida take many Floridians during the Delta COVID period? To the hospital and to the morgue. The state was one of 4 with the highest per capita case and death rates. Where does book burning and book banning and curricula constriction lead? To ignorance and prejudice and continuing social inequality. Conservatives shout for freedom of choice as a patriotic privilege, but I've learned that they're really after freedom to do as they wish, with no attendant social responsibility. So I'd like to recommend a forum on the cost of demanding freedoms without consideration for any harmful or even deadly effects on others. Is this freedom, or just a childlike desire to get what one wants? What are our freedoms? It's nuanced and based on a social contract, implicit as well as expressed. Julia couldn't be here, but she said, Dad, you've got to mention 3 things on her behalf. She thanks all of you for making sure that this would be a movement and not a moment. You remember her, the first time we all heard her say that was a great phrase that she borrowed, but you know, it's the kind of thing that made you say, yeah, let's be part of a movement, not a moment. And in the spring of 2020, that sounded like a good thing, and it still did by the fall and by the winter. And here we are 2 years later. It has been a movement, and she thanks you all for that. She wants me to remind you of the gentleman who was here the very first week when we had 190 people lined up before we got 250 the next week. And a black resident of Southbury walking along the line, videoing everybody, saying thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone along the line. My family was at the very end. And so we heard him turn from saying thank you and filming people to turning the camera on himself as he started walking back saying, and basically choking up and saying, I never knew there would be this kind of support in my community. And that moment really set us off on saying, well, we need to make sure that people know that he knows there is support. And then, of course, because of him, there was a week 2. There would not have been a week 3, except for Jack and Mary, as they were leaving what we thought was the second and final rally with the signs. And Julie said, Dad, they're stealing our signs. What do we do? I said, well, Julie, go ask them. Tell them we'll be happy to bring them back and put them in the box. And as I'm sure you all know this, Julie went over to them and said, oh, can I help you put your signs back? And Jack and Mary looked at her and said, no, it's okay. We'll just bring them next week. And Julia looked at me and said, Dad, is there going to be a next week? And so I guess, well, there has to be. And now here we are.